Come on, Jerry. I'm not sure I can compete with the boots, man. I got to go this way.
Stand by now. Well, you can't go back.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for being part of our. Hello. Good to see you. Nice to see you.
Superintendent's here as well.
Oh, Superintendent, thanks for your leadership. Nice to see you. All right, go Eagles.
You too. Sneak it.
Yeah, so what, you're going to follow me, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, on behalf of the 12,000 folks who live in our school community, the 3,000 students that attend our schools, our staff, our administration and Board of Education, many of which are here today, we'd like to welcome everyone to Mahomet Seymour Community Schools. We're here today as school leaders to show support for continued bargaining, negotiation, communication in Springfield so that we can move toward a better solution for kids in the state of Illinois. And we know that it took us a long time to get where we are today, but we also know that the moment is right to be able to come up with that new way. So with that, our first person to come to the podium would be Chapin Rose, a resident of Mahomet. So Chapin.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Particularly, thank you to the governor. Before we start, I want to recognize my family over here and a couple of their friends. My daughter Annie, my son Jack, and the twins who actually go to this school. So they just graduated kindergarten last week. So anyway, this is about the future of our state in a very literal sense. And I'm going to let the governor's words speak for themselves, but I think the events of yesterday were a epic failure at some level, and now we need to rise from those ashes and do the right thing so that everyone in this room, whether an educator or Marlon's group as a human service provider or whoever they are, can move our state forward to position us to be the great state of Illinois once again. And I know you're here to listen to the governor's comments, not mine, but I want to take the opportunity to introduce Representative Bill Mitchell, who does a great job representing Mahomet as well.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. The governor and I have the distinction of working almost daily with Speaker Madigan, so that's certainly is an interesting thing. I think what you've seen happen in over the last several months, I think what the Senator said is an epic failure. For the General Assembly, quite frankly, to give them a grade of F would be too generous. I mean, this is amazing that we've adjourned, or at least we're now in continuous session, without a state budget. They didn't even pass a state budget. A year ago, they passed a budget in deficit. This year, the House of Representatives passed a phony budget that was $7.5 billion in deficit. Now, the most elementary job we have in the General Assembly is to pass a budget, and particularly schools. Public education is a state responsibility. That we did not do that, and we had plenty of time to do it, plenty of time, that we did not do that is a failure in the General Assembly's part. So I'm glad the governor's here in our district talking about it. He has put, quite frankly, education at the top of his agenda. I mean, for years and years, for the last 7 years, the General Assembly has prorated, that means cut, public education. So remember, we passed Senator Rose and I voted no, but passed a huge tax increase in 11. Huge tax increase, and yet schools got less. Governor Rauner says, that's not good enough. He said, we're going to fully fund public education. So I'm glad he's here in Mahomet. Mahomet is known for its fine quality public education. People live in this town because of your schools. Our district in central Illinois, I have 5 counties, 20-some school districts. Public education is the economic driver. So I'm going to thank the governor for coming here. I'm going to be interested in seeing what he has to. I think I'm going to turn it over to Senator Jason Barrickman, my former colleague in the House. Senator Barrickman is a leader in the Senate in terms of public education. Turn it over to Senator Barrickman.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. The tremendous disappointment that was last night. And I think it's important to put in perspective what happened last night. Last night was the culmination of now 2 years in which this legislature, led by Speaker Mike Madigan, has been unable to put forward a balanced budget. And I think the only thing that was different about last night than last year at this time is that last night Democrats were arguing with each other. They couldn't even agree with one another on what they wanted to do. So what they did instead was engaged in a bidding war to see which side could do a better bailout of the Chicago public school system last night. Luckily, they failed. Now, this spring has been just nothing more than a series of political votes, Mike Madigan putting fake budgets and fake legislation in front of his chamber. Some of that carried over to the Senate. But it was nothing more than a political charade, led by Mike Madigan. And last night, I think what you saw was rank-and-file Democrats openly embracing the fact that they were more willing to embrace political chaos, and they were willing to do so at the expense of our children and our children's future. So our hope today is to bring some sanity to what has been nothing more than an insane process. Because if this continues down this path and is unchecked, their actions, the actions led by Speaker Mike Madigan, are going to threaten our schools. I think today, and we're surrounded by a number of school officials I see, our schools are at risk today of not being able to open this fall because of the failure of Mike Madigan and those who continue to follow him down this dreadful path. It needs to stop. It's important to recognize that this does not have to be this way. Our government can be better than this, and we control our government through our elected officials. We can stop this. But we need to be cautious along the way. There's traps set, traps by Mike Madigan to fool the public and to fool his Democratic lawmakers into following him down a path which does nothing more than support his agenda, which includes bailing out the city of Chicago and the Chicago public school system. They did it last night, and if they continue to move down this path that suggests no bipartisan compromise, no willingness to come to the table and engage in good faith negotiations with us, Governor Rauner, then they're leading down a path that is going to be disastrous for our schools and our school children. It's time for local legislators, Democrats, who live in communities like this one, Senator Bennett, Carol Ammons, up the road, across the road, Sue Scheer, up the road, Kate Clunan. These Democrats have an opportunity in front of them to change the trajectory of our state today. They do that by breaking from Mike Madigan and doing what is right, what is good, and what is needed in our state to move our state forward. We have introduced legislation that will guarantee that our schools open this fall. Where we're at today, they need that help. They're here, they're surrounding us today because they know that without a budget, we're going to see school districts collapse this fall. And the reason that collapse could occur is because of Mike Madigan's continued perseverance down a path of destruction to this state. So my message here is very clear. We understand the important role that our schools do and serve for our children. And we're ready to take action. We're ready to take action and make sure that our schools open. The 2 bills that I've mentioned, We've got a stopgap budget proposal, which will allow our state to continue its operations. And we have a bill, a clean bill, that will ensure that our schools open this fall. It does two things that are widely viewed as the two things we all agree upon in Springfield as it relates to our schools. One, proration is bad. Proration, the notion that year after year our state government is cutting our schools' budgets, is wrong. It's wrong. Every superintendent and school board member will tell you they can't do their job as long as Springfield continues to cut and prorate their budgets. So what do? We put forward a bill that has no proration and fully funds the formula, something that's not been done in this state for almost a decade. The other thing that we do is hold districts harmless so that no district from last year to this year is going to lose money. These two things, full funding, no losses, are things that have been echoed by both Republicans and Democrats around the state. So I call on our local lawmakers. I call on Senator Bennett, Representative Ammons, Sue Scheer, Kate Clunan. Break from the Madigan stranglehold on this state and join us in ensuring that our school districts and our schools are open and able to serve our children this fall. With that, I'll turn it over to Governor Rauner.
To our teachers here today, to our educators, education leaders here today, thank you. God bless you. Single most important profession in America, being a teacher. And our administration is all in for you. We want to support our teachers more every day, every year going forward. Most important thing we can spend a taxpayer dollar on is our schools and our education system. Nothing more important. One of the reasons I ran for governor is our state has been cutting school funding for years, and we are dead last. We're number 50 out of 50 for state support for education. It's wrong. Fundamentally wrong, and we've got to change that. And that's what we're fighting to do right now. Now we're here today with you back in Champaign County. I've been here a lot, and I'll be up here a lot in going forward. I care very deeply about every community in this state. We're here because we're at a critical juncture in our state's history. Yesterday, you saw what is on the line. Stunning failure by our General Assembly. Stunning dereliction of duty by the supermajority Democrats who control the General Assembly. They failed to pass a budget. They failed to pass reforms to make our economy more competitive so we can grow jobs and get higher family incomes. They failed to pass reforms to modify our pension system so it's fair and affordable and sustainable for the long run. They failed to pass reforms so we can bring down our excessively high property tax burden that's crushing our working families and crushing our small business owners. And they failed to pass political reforms through term limits so we can help reduce this corruption and cronyism and self-dealing that's been going on in our state government for years. They failed in every regard. And the tragic fact is the Democrats under Speaker Madigan have controlled our General Assembly for decades, for more than 30 years. Speaker Madigan and his Democrats have controlled the General Assembly, and they've controlled the spending in our state. And under their reign, under their control, Illinois has the biggest deficits of any state in America. We have the highest level of debt of any state in America. We have the biggest unfunded pensions of any state in America. We've had massive outmigration of people and jobs. We have the highest unemployment rate of any state in America. We have the highest level of corruption and cronyism and patronage of any state in America. We have lower family incomes today than we had 17 years ago in Illinois. We are fundamentally in decline because of the control of Speaker Madigan and his Democrats. And we've got to get the folks here in Champaign County and in Sangamon County and throughout the state to stand up and vote for their districts, not for Speaker Madigan and John Cullerton and the Chicago political machine that they are loyal to. We need our General Assembly to be loyal to the people in Illinois, not to the people in the Chicago political machine. We have got to change the system. And so it's just a fact. We have to change direction. Now, we've tried in good faith to work with Speaker Madigan's Democrats. We've tried for the past year to negotiate a balanced budget, a truly balanced budget. You know, a sad fact is, I've looked back almost 30 years of studying the numbers. I can't find that Illinois ever had a balanced budget. What we do is don't pay pensions. We kick the can. We don't pay bills. We borrow from the bond market. We don't balance our budget. And business leaders see it, and business leaders don't want to be stuck holding that tab when it comes due, so they leave. We need financial responsibility. And I'm willing to talk about new revenues. I'm an anti-tax guy. I'm willing to go for some new revenues. But we have to show that we're responsible, that we will have balanced budgets, and we will get pro-growth reforms. We've had working groups working with the Democrats and Republicans, and I compliment the Democrats in the General Assembly who've been willing to do reforms. We've come very close on very good positive reforms, but Speaker Madigan pulled the plug in the last couple of weeks, and President John Cullerton put his final brick on the process on Friday. Madigan and Cullerton don't want reforms. They want to try to force a massive tax hike after the election in January without reforms. That is wrong. We can't let that happen. And I'm calling on members of the General Assembly in the Democratic caucus, stand up to Speaker Madigan, stand up to President Cullerton, and do the right thing for the people of Illinois in your districts, in the districts around the state. This is the time to stand up and do the right thing. Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton made it clear to me in our recent negotiations that they are consciously trying to use leverage to force a tax hike without reforms. President Cullerton told me that he specifically held up appropriations for government operations as leverage to try to force the tax hike and no reforms. He said it. And President Cullerton publicly admitted that he doesn't want schools to get funded this fall unless Chicago gets a massive bailout through a new funding formula. He has said it publicly. He's admitted it. And this is wrong. They're going to hold our schools hostage, and they're going to hold our government operations hostage to force a massively unbalanced budget today and then force a massive tax hike on all of us in the winter. That we cannot allow to happen. That is wrong. We need the Democrats in the legislature to stand up against Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton and do the right thing. So we have introduced two bills, our administration in conjunction with legislative leaders and the Republican Party. We've introduced two critical bills that we should all request get passed right now. One funds our schools and our early childhood education right now. Not wait, no delay, and it fully funds the foundation level. No more proration, no more cutbacks. Fully fund our schools right today so our teachers know that schools will open on time here at the end of the summer. We need to pass that bill, and we need to put more money into our early childhood education system. Our low-income children who need child care deserve an equal chance at the American dream just like every other child. We need to support our early childhood education system with more resources. This is essential. It's our future. Our children are our #1 priority. More money for our schools, K to 12, more money for our early childhood education. Right today, no holding hostage. Pass the bill. We've got a clean bill. It's in front of the General Assembly. Yesterday, Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton said, no, they'll think about it. And then they went on and passed an unbalanced budget by $7.5 billion and tried to do almost $1 billion extra spend for the city of Chicago bailout. Not fair to the taxpayers of Champaign County. Not fair to the people of Illinois. We also have a second bill that's critical that we get passed. The other bill is for government operations and essential services. That bill covers money for our universities so that they can help start to step out of, it doesn't solve every problem, but start to step out of the crisis that has been brewing. It funds our correction system. It funds our state health facilities. It funds our public safety. It funds essential, critical government operations through next January, which is when Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton said is the time that they'll decide whether they're going to negotiate with us or not. I think they're waiting to see whether they pick up seats in November. That's what they're waiting to see. And we shouldn't hold what's right for the people of Illinois for politics. The election should not determine doing what's right. We should do what's right today. So I'm calling on you. Reach out. You've got some Democratic legislators here in Champaign County, and we have them around our beautiful state. Stand up to Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton. Don't let them hold our schools hostage or our government operations, our essential services hostage to a forced massive tax hike with no reforms next winter. Stand up and do the right thing. Let's get our schools open with more money. Let's get our government operations continue to get through this phase, and then in January, let's get a grand compromise with a balanced budget and reforms to grow our economy, get higher family incomes, start to work down our property tax burden, and correct our political system that's so broken through both term limits as well as fair maps and redistricting reform. We need it. The people of Illinois deserve it. Call on your legislators. 2 bills, schools and government operations. We need those bills passed right now. Don't spend more time passing another $7.5 billion out-of-balance budget with no way to pay for it, with no money to pay for it. And don't spend any more time passing a bill that puts in an extra $1 billion to bail out the city of Chicago. Focus on the people of Illinois and doing the right thing. Get our schools funded and open and fund our government operations. Thank you very much. Again, all of you teachers, God bless you. Thank you for your work. And I'll open it up to questions.
How surprised were you at the failure of the legislature to pass the budget last night?
I'll say 2 things. I was stunned at the way that they completely crumbled. But I'll also say they've never really passed a balanced budget. They couldn't even pass an unbalanced budget. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't get out of their own way. Now, one of the reasons they stumbled and failed so badly is many members in the Democratic caucus are starting the process of rebelling against leaders. That's a little bit of what's going on here. They're starting to break away. I saw them break away during the negotiations for reforms in the working groups. I started to see them breaking away. We saw them starting to break away yesterday, and we need more to break away, and then maybe we'll get to the right place, the good place for the people of Illinois in the long run.
So you were pleased with what happened?
I'm outraged by what happened. That is a fundamental, dramatic failure of duty. What they should have done, the Democrats, they have a supermajority. They could do anything they want. The Democrats should have come together and stood up to Speaker Madigan and President Cullerton weeks and weeks ago. We could have a balanced budget, we could have reforms, and we could be funding our schools, and we could be on a trajectory of prosperity for the people of the state. The Democrats, they're starting to get there, and the fact that they didn't get there yesterday at the end of the General Assembly session, stunning failure and a dereliction of duty.
Governor, what are the chances of you calling a special session?
So far, the Speaker has said that he's planning on calling his General Assembly members in on Wednesdays going forward. I don't think that's enough. So I'm going to negotiate with the Speaker and ask that we meet far more regularly than that, and then we'll see what we can work out. This should not be dragged on. Our teachers shouldn't be put in a position whether they're wondering whether their schools are going to open. Our parents and our children deserve to know that the schools are going to get more money and they're going to open on time. We owe it to the people of Illinois. We should not wait weeks and weeks on this. We should do it right now.
Was there any point that you felt that a compromise was close?
Yes, very much so. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I thought we were going to get there. Then, and I knew we were getting close because Speaker Madigan started to insert himself because he got concerned we were actually going to get a grand compromise, and he doesn't want that. He's been pretty clear that he doesn't want any reforms. And he inserted himself in the process, and very quickly the members of the Republican caucus and the working groups came back and said, wow, you could see that the chain got pulled in on the Democrats and they've reversed or taken things off the table or changed their position and gone backwards. I pushed the Speaker and I said, please, Mr. Speaker, don't let this process go on. Let the democratic process play out. Let these General Assembly members negotiate in good faith. He allowed it to continue, but he inserted some of his most senior lieutenants into the process. They controlled it, and the process has been slow-rolled for the last 3 weeks. I was optimistic that the Democrats would stand up, because I've got many friends on both sides of the aisle. Many of the Democrats who I'm close with really do want to get a grand compromise, and they know that the reforms we're advocating are fair and reasonable and bipartisan. I picked the reforms that our administration has advocated because they are bipartisan, because Democrats in the state and Republicans in the state support them. Nothing we're advocating is partisan. Even Attorney General Lisa Madigan, who's not a Republican, has said we need causation in our workers' comp system. We are not advocating partisan issues. And I thought we were going to get there, but the Speaker and the President put a brick on it, and so far the Democrats in the General Assembly have not been willing to challenge them. I hope the process of challenging them will play out and we'll get to a grand compromise. And let's not wait until January. The people of Illinois deserve this right now.
Governor, given this vote by the Senate last night and the opposition from other Democrats, does this raise the argument that Madigan doesn't have the power that he wants to?
We are starting to see the breakdown in the rebellion, I believe. Now, you've seen on certain issues the Speaker can drive a result over objections. You've seen that repeatedly. I've seen it up close and personal. They've passed some horrible bills for the people of Illinois and just forced. And I've seen one Democrat actually break away on a bill that the Speaker truly was passionately cared about, and he took that Democrat out in his primary. He rules with an iron fist. Clearly the Speaker doesn't care that much about the budget. If he did, he would manage it differently. The fact that it broke down just indicates to me that he doesn't really care that much. He knows the bill that the Speaker passed in the House has a $7.5 billion deficit in it with no way to pay for it. There's no. It's not a budget. It's just a spending plan that's unconstitutional, unfair to the people. So I think he's frankly, a lot of his caucus is embarrassed that they even voted for it.
You still support the working groups getting
Yes.
together?
Yes, I think I'm always an advocate for compromise and negotiation. That's what politics is involved. We've got to compromise. I'm going to have to do some things I'd rather not do. Democrats are going to have to do some things they'd rather not do. These are hard issues, but we've got to get it done.
You're willing to compromise on these two pieces of legislation?
Well, what we got to do is get these done now. To me, it's not debatable. We should fund the full foundation level for our schools, and we should get more early child education, and we should make sure that essential services are provided. It's really not debatable. We should get this done.
Like the Democrats have proposed?
Well, they're proposing in one version $700 million, mostly that goes to Chicago, and another version almost $1 billion that mostly goes to Chicago. I'm willing to put more money into, especially for low-income schools, but we should work this out in a broader solution when we've really got the revenues. Right now we don't have the revenue, and to put in $1 billion extra that mostly goes to Chicago, I'm not ready to support that. I'm ready to support the full foundation level and a hold harmless so no school district gets less. I think that's the right place to be right now.
What's changing?
Several area lawmakers and across the state, both sides of the aisle, are going to run unopposed in November. What impact do you think that has in this whole process? Putting less pressure that rebellion to be reversed?
The answer is yes, it does. That's why one of the reasons our political system is so broken. Our system is rigged to protect incumbents, so there's no incentive for them to compromise and come up with better solutions. That's why the fair map. I was an advocate for the General Assembly passing redistricting reform. They refused to do it. I'm an advocate for term limits as well, and that has bipartisan support. 80% of Democrats and Republicans in the state of Illinois support term limits. So far, they've refused both of those. The bad news is term limits can only be done through the General Assembly. When we did it on the ballot last year, the Supreme Court said can't be done through the ballot initiative, has to be done by the General Assembly. So we're going to keep pushing term limits there. The good news is that the courts have indicated that fair map redistricting reform can be done through a ballot initiative, and that's been those signatures are collected, and there's a good chance to get it on the ballot. The bad news is Speaker Madigan and his attorney have sued to block that reform getting on the ballot. The Speaker has very high level of influence with the judicial system in Illinois, and I don't know where that will go, but we've got to stay strong. Hopefully we can win that lawsuit.
Last question.
What do you think has changed in the past year? Just in terms of the Franker and Springfield?
The system is changing. I hope it's changing for the better, but the change is slow. The good news is we're transforming state government. We've eliminated almost $800 million out of wasteful spending in state government. We brought in super leaders of our state agencies, and we've negotiated new labor contracts with 18 of the government unions where their salaries are not increased, but they're given incentive and merit pay so they can make more money based on productivity and based on gain sharing. If $1 is saved for a taxpayer, a certain percentage of that goes to the employees. Changing the culture of our state government dramatically so that we can get more effective, responsive government. And we are on the verge of transforming the state of Illinois. We're in the early days of it, but we are going to make a government that's efficient, effective, and transparent. We're going to reduce the tax burden on the people over time. And most essentially, we're going to get reforms, and this is what our turnaround agenda is really about, to grow our economy. We've got to grow our economy. We have so much debt that Speaker Madigan's group has put on us that if we don't grow, we'll never pay it. It's not possible to fund our pensions and our debt if we don't grow our economy. And here's the Speaker Madigan has said to me, he said, Governor, don't talk about your reforms, just pass the budget. What he means by that is don't change the system that he created and just do an income tax hike. My answer to that is no, that's wrong for the people of Illinois. And when he says those reforms have nothing to do with the budget, they're non-budget items, we need to all understand very clearly. Economic growth drives the budget. Economic growth determines the budget. And here's a simple fact that everybody here in Champaign County and around Illinois needs to know. If we just grew Illinois' economy at the nation's average, simply average, and we should be way above average because we got the best people in America and the best location of any state, best agriculture, best infrastructure. We should grow way above average. But just if we grew at the nation's average over the last 15 years, we would not have any deficit today. We would not have any unpaid bills today. We would not have needed the 2011 tax hike at all. And today, our state treasury would have over $13 billion more in it to fund our schools, to fund our human services, to fund our universities, and give a tax rebate. Novel idea in Illinois, but we could give a tax rebate to homeowners and small business owners like Indiana and other states have done to really boost our economic growth even faster. We need economic growth, and our pro-growth reforms are essential to doing that. Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it. It's good to be with you. Thank you. Thank you. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
How are you, sir?